Hello, I would like to share with you the example of Pakistan in the use of Multidimensional Poverty Index, which was produced in 2016 for the first time. The MPI estimates were calculated at three levels: national, provincial, and district. And it was the entire process was done in a very consultative manner. The federal government, provincial governments, stakeholders from academia and civil society all were engaged in developing the index itself in terms of what are the variables should be used to develop the index, what would be the data sources. And that was something which was very useful in terms of creating ownership, a broader ownership for the poverty index in itself. Now, in terms of the impact, I would say that the multidimensional poverty index has really changed the entire narrative of approaching poverty from unilateral or from a kind of income angle only to a more of a multidimensional phenomena. I would like to mention a few areas where it has really created an impact. First is I would say the entire policy making narrative has changed. Now, if you look at the different documents which the government produces, like the five-year annual development plans, the visions documents, as well as the annual budgets, it does talk about multidimensional poverty. It does talk about focusing on those districts which are lagging behind. So it has really changed the way the government approaches its policy making exercise. For example, the recently announced poverty alleviation program, which is a multi-billion initiative, SAS, it also talks about reducing multidimensional poverty. The second area where it has really created impact and related to the public policy is basically the allocation of resources, the allocation of public resources across different regions. A few years back, Punjab, which is one of the largest provinces in the country, announced its Provincial Finance Commission Award, which is a methodology or an instrument to allocate resources across different regions. And they specifically mentioned that the districts which are lagging behind using the multidimensional poverty will get more resources, and they will be targeted for different public programs. Even in the last budget, the government came up with a proposal to allocate additional resources for all those districts across the country which are lagging behind, or where the multidimensional poverty is higher than the other districts. So it has really helped in terms of informing the public resource allocation across different regions. Thirdly, it has now become a tool for monitoring poverty as well. So now it's not only about national poverty which is being monitored, but the district poverty, and using the multidimensional poverty. It has really become like one of the policy objectives of the government. Fourthly, I would say, and I think it's a very interesting development, is that it has really informed the political debate. I remember in the last elections, many of the political parties put multidimensional poverty, especially reducing district disparities in their political manifestos. Also, even now, the different political parties in the government and outside the government, they do talk about these issues. So it has also really helped in terms of informing political debates from the angle of reducing inequality. Inequality not in terms of the kind of usual inequality we talk about, but in terms of the deprivation in different areas like health, education, and living standards. So I think that has been quite a big impact, because if you can create or if you can impact the political debate I think that kind of, it is quite helpful in terms of making a broader impact. Now, I think I would also like to share with you why I think that the Multidimensional Poverty Index has been so useful in terms of Pakistan. First, and I think this is something which is very important for all practitioners who would like to use the Multidimensional Poverty Index. First, I think the most important thing is that you create ownership for this and at all levels. So in case of Pakistan, when we started off this exercise, the first thing we did was that we signed a trilateral kind of agreement with the Planning Commission of Pakistan, and basically we just wanted to create a political ownership for this thing. The second is the ownership of the kind of wider stakeholders, because in Multidimensional Poverty Index you have the freedom to kind of to decide on the design of the index, like what parameters should be included, what would be the data sources and all those things. We created ownership for the index as well. So we had this consultative workshop across different provinces with different stakeholders, and I think it was very useful in creating a kind of a broader ownership. Third is that the data sources is very important. So there are two options when you produce a multidimensional poverty. One is that you produce an ideal one where all the indicators that you think are the most important, you include those, and then you do a kind of a, let's say, kind of a survey for that, just specifically designed for collecting such data. And the other is that you use some of the existing data sources, specially produced by the government. We went with the second option, and I think that was useful because you need to kind of to ensure continuity of this exercise. I don't think that it would be that useful if you create a multidimensional poverty index through a dedicated survey, but if you don't have the resources to kind of to undertake those kind of surveys regularly, it's not going to help you, especially in terms of poverty monitoring and in terms of targeting. So the lesson is that try to use the government sources, the data sources, and maybe if some adjustments are needed over there, do engage with the statistic institutions to kind of to change or to modify the different survey instruments. Fourthly, I think it's very important that this the MPI is produced at the subnational level. I mean, if I would say that if someone would ask me what is the one reason for MPI being so useful and helpful and so, I would say, famous in Pakistan, the reason for that was that we were able to produce these district multidimensional poverty estimates, because that is the area which it really created the political debate, the discussion, so many people wrote in the newspapers, there were discussion on electronic media, and everyone was kind of comparing districts with each other, because that is a unit of analysis which gives you more information. So if you would like to venture into multidimensional poverty index, try to do it at the lowest tier of the government, the lowest administrative tier. In Pakistan is a district. In other cases it might be different. And lastly, I think it's also important to have a very clear communication plan. So when we produce the multidimensional poverty index, from the very start we engage with a broader set of stakeholders, including representative of from newspapers or from all those journalists who write on such issues, but also in terms of communicating it in a simple way. I remember it was a bit difficult for us to explain to kind of to put the difference between intensity and incidence in a simple way. because the beauty of Multidimensional Poverty Index is that it is something which the politician can understand very quickly. I mean, when you talk about education, when you talk about health, these are some things that everyone relate themselves to. Explaining or a kind of a consumption-based poverty or a poverty line or a equivalent of poverty, those kind of terms are very difficult for people to understand. So I mean, while it is comparatively much easier to communicate on MPI, but at the same time, I would say that special efforts should be made that you convey it in the most non-technical way and the simple words possible. So I would say these are some of the takeaways from our work on MPI in Pakistan. And as I said, I think it has been a very good experience. But as I said earlier, you really have to create ownership for this exercise. Do not take this as a technical exercise alone. It is a political exercise as well, and keep that in mind. Thank you very much.